and a valuable resource, and I'd be happy to work with them, and I've offered this in other ways that we can continue to expand if that be their wish, and how else we can work with them. So that's a personal commitment, and one that I certainly intend to keep. The other thing is, Mr. Chair, I want to commend my colleague from Dartmouth North for seeking out opportunities to educate himself to better serve the needs of his constituents. It really is a true testament to his own credibility. And Mr. Chair, I see you're mouthing to me 30 seconds. Then I had other things that I wanted to say, and perhaps we can come back to this, because I want to discuss this issue because I believe it's important, and I want to make a suggestion on the record regarding a couple of things about that. So I'll save that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Now recognize the honourable member for Digby Annapolis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Madam Chair, for entertaining a few questions for me. To start off with, I don't envy your job, if that helps you any. You have quite a challenge on your hands, and but everything I hear about community service seems to be focused on the amount of money people get, and we know that the amount of money people get is not very much. You know, you can't get into a situation where you make it too comfortable, because probably I'd quit this job and go to community service myself. You know, you would see a lot of that. But a lot I see, and I talk to a lot of people on community service, or who's clients of community service, and they seem to, a lot of them, not all of them, a lot of the people seem to lack confidence and self-esteem, and with no fault, but by no fault of their own. It's probably a situation where they how they grew up and whatever, and that's just the situation they're in. I know that community service has some kind of a training program. I'm not too sure just what it is, but I believe these people need more training than just to know how to fill out a resume, because you could take that resume anywhere to anyone and they could probably fill it out for you. You know, that training there probably is not doing these clients much good. But what would help these clients out, what I see and what I feel of it, if there was programs to help in self-confidence and encouragement. I brought my children up all my life, and still am, I guess. But I never, ever discourage them about anything. It's always encouragement. There's nothing on this earth that you can't do. Nothing. If you can breathe and stand up, and if you have two arms that'll move, and any kind of brain at all, you can do something. And you can go to the moon. You want to go to the moon? You can go to the moon. Go train to be an astronaut, go to the moon. Anybody can. All you got to do is learn how to float around in the air. A lot of people, clients of community service, lack self-esteem. They lack self-confidence. And has community service ever thought of having something in their program that would help some of these people out in that area?
The Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I welcome my colleague to the discussion with a very heartfelt first topic to bring up. I couldn't agree more with him. I know that he speaks from the heart when he talks about the raising of his own children, the importance of that self-esteem, that self-confidence. Having spent 15 years in the classroom, I know the invaluable sense of worth that an individual is empowered with. I know how important that is. The challenge becomes, is there a formula for that? I would suggest to my honourable colleague that there are components that would work their way into a formula. And I'll make some suggestions that we currently do in the department that do lead to that self-confidence and that self-esteem escalation. And then I would welcome some further discussion if he has some suggestions as well. So when I think about to be technical for a moment, when I think about the financial commitments that we make to the tune of $600,000 for the adult learning so that individuals can go on and can take programming at the community college. We all know that empowering an individual is truly how we break the cycle. And it's that empowerment that can cause an individual to have that elevation in the self-esteem, because that's when they truly are providing for themselves and their family. So the adult learning component is extremely important. As well, the employment support, it's called, the employment support income assistance programming, the employment support component to that, I think, is another key area. Recently, we've actually undertook an evaluation of that employment support. We've asked the individuals that we've worked with. We've gone back, because how do you know if you're doing something right? How do you know if you're achieving the goals of your program if you don't go back and ask? So we went back and we asked, and we have feedback now from the individuals that we worked with through those employment support programs, the training programs, the assistance, the literacy assistance programs, the assistance in providing work boots, or the assistance in providing resume writing skills or computer skills. So we've gone back and we've said, now, did we help you, and how did we help you, and was it successful? And so we're reviewing that evaluation as we speak. So I'll be very interested to have a complete analysis of that, and we'd be pleased to share that with the member in more detail. As well, I think it's important that we look at programs like Harvest Connection and Career Seek that we've been able to bring in the last few months. Those are programs that are meant to, again, empower individuals themselves to go to work, to earn money, and to not be eliminated from the system, to not be eliminated from the system because you're seeking a university education. We're bringing that program in this year. We're very pleased to have brought that to the floor. So those types of programming can do just what my colleague is asking, and it's in those concrete programs and those programs of assistance that I believe we can truly empower individuals and provide that self-confidence so that they can elevate themselves and their families to the place where they truly want to be.
The honourable member for Digby Annapolis.
You spoke of training people, social assistance, community service, training people. I talked to a fellow here not long ago who went to community service for help. He wanted to train to be to heavy equipment, and he was turned down. And he was turned down for the reason because he was not a client. He was not a client. So he says, do I have to lower myself to become a client of community service before that department can help me? And I couldn't answer that question, but all I said to him was, I guess that's the way the system is set up. Has community service thought of looking into that situation?
The Honourable the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And as I've stated in this chamber before, and I will repeat, it's so important for us to work together with other departments. It's so important to have that interdepartmental discussion and to fully understand what goes on in each other's departments. Because I'm sitting here thinking, absolutely, not every individual who needs training should be a client of the Department of Community Services. If they're able to provide for their families and to be succeeding, we shouldn't create a disincentive for them to do that. So we shouldn't say you need to be a client so we can help you. What needs to happen is the Department of Education, through their apprenticeship and training, through their labor market agreements with other levels of government, They have programs. So I would invite my colleague to have the discussion with the Minister of Education, perhaps ask her the question about the programs that exist in her department. I will do the same, and hopefully we can find some assistance for this individual. But I think it highlights the discussion that we've had about the importance of departments knowing what goes on in each other's department and creating that interdepartmental wealth of knowledge that can be so important, so that honourable members in this House and Nova Scotians aren't sent in 100 different directions seeking the assistance that they need.
The honourable member for Digby Annapolis.
Thank you, Minister. I want to talk about part-time workers. We have part-time workers in our area who are earning not a whole lot more than what they can receive from community services. So I have people coming to me saying, well, I'm torn between quitting that part-time job and going on or to go on community service, and they can't get any other job. They can't even get a second job with that, you know, not from the area I'm from. Because I say to them, you know, try to go get 2 or 3 part-time jobs. And, well, it's not there. But you have big box stores that are doing this in rural areas. They're keeping them under this 18 or 20, whatever it is, 20-some hours per week, so they don't have to pay them benefits. They don't have to pay them medical benefits, which is putting another burden on our tax system also. So it seems like they would feel that they would be better off to leave that and come to the community service, earn the same amount of money, and be better off because they don't have to worry about traveling. They don't. That's a situation that's happening in rural areas of Nova Scotia. And I don't know how widespread that is. But all this seems like that we as a government are subsidizing these big box stores to have these part-time workers there. And then they're saying that the workers are saying, no, we won't work for them. We'll go back and go on community service. So has the department thought this one out of what's going on in rural areas? I don't know if it's going on here in the city or not, but I know for a fact it's going on in Digby. Has community service thought this one out of what kind of a mess that is created?
The Honourable, the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And again, my honourable colleague brings to the floor a very challenging discussion. And I will start off by saying that the challenges that face some of our rural communities as it pertains to part-time work, full-time work, benefits, etc., I don't believe is limited to rural. I believe it does, and I'm sure that some of our colleagues from some of the more urban communities would agree that it's not limited to rural areas. Now, the opportunities for work may be more challenging. And the opportunities to find 2 or 3 part-time jobs in some of our rural communities may be more challenging than in an urban area. But I think it likely crosses those boundaries. The issue of a work ethic, and I know my honourable colleague has a very strong work ethic. I know from his many years in the fishing industry, he would have, as would many members of his community, as all members in this House have communities built on strong work ethics. I come from a farming family myself. The work ethic that was instilled in me as a child is one that I have endeavored to instill in my children. And it's extremely valuable. There are cases where individuals find themselves at a position in their life where they need our assistance. And we like to say that our department is the line of last resort, that it's not a choice that individuals come to us, it is a necessity. And I believe that. The personal pride that individuals have, and the folks that each and every member in this House, I'm sure, have talked with, who come seeking assistance, who do so with a heavy heart because they truly don't want to be seeking assistance. They want to be providing for their families, yet there are those challenges in front of them. And I don't believe it's something that sits solely on our shoulders. I've had this discussion with my colleague from Environment and Labour when we discussed the minimum wage issue. I've had the discussion with the Minister of Education when we talk about the importance of education and how education is the first line of defense, and literacy and the opportunity to better oneself through education. So it's through those discussions, those interdepartmental programs and workings that we truly do break down these walls, and that we truly do provide the opportunities for individuals. And I think too, as I made reference earlier, my colleague brought the idea of clambers from Digby coming, working in a winter works program last year to me. And I made reference to it earlier. I think those works programs, through the Office of Economic Development, through Environment and Labour, through education, through us, I think it can be win-win, because you take a program in an area where you have underemployment, and you use that underemployment to your advantage and to our advantage in the repair, renovation, and housing components, to economic development's advantage because we're putting individuals to work. So it becomes a win-win. So I think in the days to come, I will be looking for some discussion and some opportunity to meet with economic development, education, environment, and labour to work through those programs, because for areas like my honourable colleague represents, I think it's one of the true ways, one of the real ways that we can add to the success of those constituents in that area.
The honourable member for Digby-Annapolis.
Thank you for that. A situation was just brought to my attention here in the last few days. A lady of 59 years old and her husband of 60 years old, they went out to Alberta last year, and no, 2 years ago, sorry. 2 years ago they went out west and they worked. They found good jobs out there, good paying jobs, and they earned pretty good money, and they also told me it was no more expensive to live there for buying food and gas as it is here. The housing out there is a little more expensive. But anyway, a situation come up with the mother. The mother's home here alone, and they didn't know exactly what was going to happen, so they quit their jobs out west to come home to be with the mother, because the fear of that she may die. Now this lady of 85 years old is still with us, thank God, and this lady may be with us for quite a while. Her mind is good, her wits are about her. She doesn't want to go into a nursing home. So the parents, or the daughter, come home to be with her. What savings they had from out west, it's gone. They've used it up. Never ever been to community service in their life. And don't want to, but can't find anything here. They've been looking. They're living on Long Island in Digby County. And I was told 2 or 3 days ago she's going to have to turn and try to go to community service and try to make herself go there and ask for help until she sees what her mother's future is. Is there any help through community service for a situation like that to help that mother or help that daughter and her husband stay here and take care of her mother without her feeling like she's downgrading herself to turn to welfare?
The Honourable, the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and indeed a very challenging situation. And certainly I would wish all health and happiness to the family. And we all know the challenges that come with caring for loved ones. If you're in this room and you haven't had that challenge yet, it's not an easy one. And some of us have successfully seen our parents and grandparents through, and others have left us far too early. And I know that the weight on the young families or that family's shoulders to care for their mother is tremendous. So I would certainly wish them all good fortune. I would invite my honourable colleague to speak to me outside the chamber about the specifics of this case. I will ensure that my department officials contact the family to get the specifics, because I think that this is one that we need to know the details on. And I certainly won't speak to specifics of any case, as all my colleagues know I would not do. But I would like the specifics on this one, because I can talk about, and I know that's not what my colleague doesn't want to hear me talk about, programs that we have available. He wants to know exactly what's available in that community for that family. So we do have housing services that are provided, that are available. We have homes and affordable housing. We have public housing. I do want to mention the program that we introduced this year in the budget that we will be rolling out, and that's why I want the specifics of this case, because this entire concept of aging in place and doing so with grace incorporates the dollars that we put up front for family members to provide for their parents or family members to eliminate the necessity of going to a nursing home. So if this family qualifies, and as we roll out the details of this program, if families qualify, then they will be provided with assistance for caregiving for their family members in their homes. So that's a program that we did introduce this year to tackle such issues, such delicate issues as the one that my honourable colleague brings to the floor. So as we look at the details of this individual case, we'll know better where the family will fit within our programming, and I would invite him to do that.
The honourable member for Digby Annapolis.
Brings me to housing. Thank you for that. Having a lot of calls, more and more so all the time, and I believe this was brought up earlier by another member, but it just seems to be a growing thing, and that more people need help, more elderly people need help to repair their homes and keep their homes up. And the waiting list, I talk to housing in Middleton a lot, and probably 2-3 times a week, and they just say, Mr. Theriault, the waiting list is just growing longer and longer. And they've even reported to me, you know, that we can't handle the applications coming in, you know, for lack of staff. That's been reported to me from housing, and that's how busy it's getting for them. So in my notes here, I have repair program funding has been cut from last year's budget. More alarming is the drastic lack of spending from last year's budget. Only $18 million of the $33 million budgeted for this program was used. I mean, that's down $15 million. Could you explain why?
The Honourable, the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And there are 2 points here that I'd like to address. And the first one goes directly to the housing opportunities across the province. And we have a menu of over 13 housing assistance programs in the province. And it goes to a point we were making earlier about communication. Often we don't recognize and realize the wealth of programming that we do have available, but there are over 13 programs to assist individuals with housing challenges, Mr. Chair. So I make that comment for the record to indicate that those 13 programs comprise a phenomenal dollar figure of our budget, whether it's the $90 million that the government will spend over a 7-year period through the first phase of housing, the second phase of housing, the housing trust. Those dollars that we will commit, that's a phenomenal expenditure, Mr. Chair, on behalf of the province, and we do so because we recognize the need for those units. Of that first phase of housing, that the dollars were committed from the federal and provincial governments together, we were able to complete 273 new units to date. There are 270 under construction, and we have as well completed 178 home preservation. I make this preamble into the answer to the second, more specific question about the estimate to actual and estimate to forecast. We have committed the dollars. We know the need is there. The challenge in getting that money out the door is one that a lot of the answer rests outside of our control. We have committed the dollars. We have approved the projects. In some cases, those projects are held for various reasons. There's one where the land permit has not come through yet, so that has stalled the project. There are challenges with our construction industry and our labor issues, being able to actually complete the projects. We're at the whim of the contractors and the construction industry when it comes to getting those projects off the ground. So it's not that the money is not there, and it's not that the money will not be spent. It's that those challenges that are out of our control, Mr. Chair, have left us with an under expenditure because the forces beyond our control, Mr. Chair, didn't allow for those dollars to be put out the door. Those dollars will go out the door. In some cases, over the next month or two, we will see some of that money flow. Actually, a few $1 million will flow in the next couple of months as the construction season starts up again and we see some of those projects move forward. But the money is still there. It does not get rolled back. It does not get reallocated. It stays there, and the projects will be completed, Mr. Chair.
The honourable member for Digby-Annapolis.
I asked, I guess maybe I never asked, but I will now, staffing at housing in Middleton, or maybe all around the province. I've heard that staffing is a problem, that there's not enough staff to deal with the applications that are coming in. I've called there about some that's gone in 4 or 5 months and they haven't got to those applications yet for repairs, housing repairs or whatever. So I will ask, is there a problem with the staffing at housing, specifically in Middleton?
The Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And indeed, I've made the comment before that we have over 1,000 employees through the Department of Community Services, and a good component of those work through the housing authorities, in addition to the department staff. I can state for the record that there's been no decline in housing staff. The challenges, as I mentioned earlier, the better we are at providing a program, the more folks we serve. So those challenges do come to the staff, that as we increase household income limits, as we increase the dollar figures, and we have more individuals who then apply for the programming, that becomes more of a challenge and more of a pressure for the staff. But we've not reduced the staff, and I was just understanding that it is a challenge getting those inspectors, and there are challenges across jurisdictions for workers in different categories. So it is a challenge for us, and so we will endeavour to do our best to ensure that those jobs remain filled. There is no intention to decrease those, but again, it's a challenge to get those inspectors on the job.
The Honourable Member for Digby-Annapolis.
I have another challenge for you, for the minister. I have 2 parents. One is 71 years old and one is 72 years old. They have two mentally challenged adult children that are in their 40s. They have gone to the Department of Health, and they have gone to community services. Yes, I'm talking about you, Mr. Minister. Their challenge is they're 71, 72 years old. They know they're not going to be around much longer. The children are with them. The adult children are with them. And they are worried in the future, in the near future, of what's going to happen to these boys. They've gone to community service about more option homes. How many, you know, is there going to be more option homes in Nova Scotia? Well, community services, that's out of our hands. You have to go to the Department of Health. So they go to the Department of Health, and the Department of Health says, no, that's out of our hands. You have to go to community services. I don't know how widespread this is. I know these people personally who don't live far from me. Wonderful people. But they are worried about these boys that are going to need help. They don't know what is going to happen to these boys once their time comes to move on to the next life or wherever. Could you elaborate on that option homes in Nova Scotia, is it the responsibility of community service, or is it the responsibility of the Department of Health?
The Honourable, the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And the issue regarding the services for persons with disabilities is one that is extremely challenging. It presents opportunity for us to truly look inward at the programs and the services that we do provide. The member references a specific case, and again, I'm going to give some program discussion, but I would ask that the member again bring the specifics of the cases to me outside the chamber, so we can ensure that those families receive some comfort and some assistance in securing options for those loving family members who are in need of our assistance. And I have a couple of community members myself who are finding themselves aging, as we all do, and they have disabled children, and they are extremely concerned about what happens to them. We're all concerned about our children and our parents. The challenges when you have a disabled child or parent, and the challenges that go along with that, I think are even more heavy on the shoulders of those family members because of the opportunities that aren't as widespread throughout the province. Now, the member asked pointedly, is it our responsibility or the Department of Health's responsibility? One of the true delights of this department is that we get to work with the Department of Health on a regular basis. And the Department of Health and the staff at the Department of Health and the Minister of the Department of Health have been excellent to work with. We have projects and programs that we co-sponsor. We transition patients or clients as need be, because sometimes our programming better fits the individual than the Department of Health, and sometimes the Department of Health has programming that better fits. So one of the things that I am extremely proud of is the communication that we have developed with the Department of Health, the advances we've been able to make with some very complex cases with the Department of Health to ensure that the best option available for the individual, not the parameter of the department, is what determines or dictates the assistance we're able to provide. And we will continue to do that. That's a commitment that I've made, and a commitment that the Department of Health, I know, has made as well, and the Minister himself has made. Now, there are a few options that I'd like to put on the record for the member that I think are indicative of the importance and the priority that the department places on the programming. The community-based programming in this province for persons with disabilities, when you look at the line-to-line, we'll see a $15 million increase in the estimate from the estimate of last fiscal to the estimate of next fiscal. That indicates the importance. That indicates the pressure and the stress that we know is out there, and we're responding with the dollars on the ground that then feed the programming. A new program to the member's area that he will want to acquaint himself with is the independent living program that we piloted in Cape Breton last year, that we are bringing to the rest of the province this year, and will provide the funding. And not only are we bringing that program, we're expanding that program because of the success of the program in the Cape Breton area. And it provides for family members it provides for individuals to receive assistance in their homes. Those who are able to live independently receive assistance for respite care, for individuals to assist them with their living. So that care is provided at the ground level. And it's proven to be extremely popular, and we will continue to provide that service across the province. The alternate family, which is another program that we provide, where individuals are placed in a foster home environment, if you will, persons with disabilities who find themselves in need of a foster home environment. We have a program up and running, and we have had great success with that program. And so that's another area where we're able to provide the services in the individuals' communities, because we've heard time and time again that that's where the main thrust, where they truly want to be, and those who are able to be in their communities. And the third program, of course, is the direct family support, where individuals receive financial assistance from the department to enable their family members, their loved ones, to stay in their homes with them. And so those three programs are directly out of our department. And so we offer those programs, and we will continue to. The discussion of the small option homes, the group homes, and then the more challenging cases that require the assistance of perhaps in this member's area would be the King's Rehab Center. So there are options out there. We have undergone a residential review. It is something that, even though it was underway, I've made the statement numerous times that I did not allow that to get in our way of providing services when we needed to. We recognized needs in different communities, and we attempted to fill those needs even though the review was underway, because we didn't expect the review to tell us that we didn't have gaps. We didn't expect the review to tell us that we didn't have challenges. So while we were waiting for that official review and the fallout and the go forward from that, we did put in place some opportunities, like the 5-bed home in the Dartmouth area, to transition some of our more complex cases, the Cobequid, which will provide respite, as well as a new home for 11 very complex cases who are currently being served in another area, and as well as some of the pressure from the forensic unit for those very complex cases. So the entire discussion around small option, around group home, and around the more complex case requirements will continue. It's something that, again, with the complexities of society, we recognize in our department we have to be flexible. We have to have programming that meets the needs of the individuals. And we will continue to expand those programs, to invest dollars in those programs, to ensure that the maximum benefit is received by all family members.
The Honourable Member for Digby Annapolis.
Thank you, Madam Minister, and I want to thank you, Mr. Chair. I look forward to discussing these couple of matters with you, and I think it's very important to the people that it involves. And so, with that, I will share the rest of my time with my Mr. Colwell from Preston. Colwell? Thank you.
The order, please. The Minister has requested a 2-minute break, and so we'll recess for 2 minutes, and then we will come back to the Honourable Member for Preston.
Keith, maybe we can get Frank signed. Take your time. There's no rush. You want to take your time. I get a lot of questions. No problem.
for Preston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wonder how much time I have left.
You are on until 12:03.
12:03?
We have about,
Thank you very much. I've got a few questions for the Minister around financial accountability. As was stated in the Auditor General's report in June of 2006, there was some weaknesses identified, and I know the Department has done some work to rectify these situations, but at the time they were identified, there were pretty serious concerns. Now, I believe that these were probably identified before the present minister was in place, and I would just like to find out on some very specific things what has been done and what approach you've taken to resolve these problems. And before I ask these questions, this is no, I want to make it very clear, I'm not saying anything negative about the staff in the department. That's not the reason for my questions. It's just that financial control is very important for all of us. There's so many important projects and so many important things that have to happen in this province, and if someone used their authorities inappropriately, it could cost us all and would mean that some of the families that do need help may not be able to get help. And I just want to make sure that these controls are now in place, which I'm hopefully your responses, which I'm sure they will be positive in that regard. I'm just going to go through a few things here, right out of the Auditor General's report, and again, this is the one that was done in June 2006, and it's under the Information and Technology and Financial Control section. And I'll just quote a few things out of this, and I know you have this a copy of this already, all the members do. It is said in one section here that there's a number of control weaknesses identified in a particular area, and financial loss or other negative consequences could occur either through fraudulent action or error. And there didn't seem to be a time when this report was done and brought forward that indeed those financial controls are in place. And they go on to identify some things such as people that have left employment with the department still have access, complete access, a pretty high level access to the computer system through their passwords. And I'll just leave with those general comments to start with, and then I'll have some very specific questions around that I'd like to ask. Thank you.
The Honourable, the Minister of Community Services.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I welcome my honourable colleague to the discussion today. I always find his questions to be very interesting and sometimes entertaining, but always very heartfelt. And this is a very important issue, Mr. Chair. There is no greater issue to, I'm sure, the taxpayers of the province than accountability, transparency, and accountability. And for that reason, Mr. Chair, there can be no greater importance put on the clarifying and the cleaning up of some of those issues. We accepted all of the Auditor General's recommendations. We worked diligently with the Auditor General to provide copies of reports and information that were sought. And, Mr. Chair, we will continue to do so to ensure that that accountability and that transparency is there, Mr. Chair. The financial commitment, the proof in the pudding, if you will, Mr. Chair, is the commitment by the department to implement the ICM program, Mr. Chair, to the tune of $3 million per year over 4 years for a $12 million commitment. That in itself is the dollar commitment that shows the importance of this issue and the budget commitment of the department and the government to ensure that we attack the challenges and the potential for that lack of accountability. So that is the proof in itself. This will ensure that accountability. It will further our systems that we have in place, and to avoid the issues that my honourable colleague brought forward. And you know, Mr. Chair, we work with a tremendous group of service providers. We have a tremendous list of clientele and individuals that we serve. And Mr. Chair, as my honourable colleague stated, he was not casting blame or accusing, and neither am I, because accidents occur, mistakes occur, and when that happens, it is understandable. And the onus then is to ensure it does not happen again. And I think that's the lesson that we all come out of this with, that regardless of the intent, and if indeed it is a malice intent, then certainly actions need to take place outside the parameters, even in some instances of the department. If it is indeed that mistake, then we need to learn from that. One of the things that I have stressed is the importance of going back and evaluating programs, evaluating the success of something, evaluating the lack of success. If we don't ask if something's working, how do we know if it is? How do we know if a program we're providing is achieving its goals if we don't go back and ask? And how do we know if indeed the services and the programs that we provide to individuals and that accountability, how do we know that's there if we don't go back and investigate and ask? So I appreciate the member bringing this to the table here today, to the floor here today. The other issue that he mentioned was the one that did cause me concern as well, and the importance of the confidentiality in our department, as in every department. I know it's important in every department. I value it in our department, perhaps even more so than some of my colleagues, because the clientele that we deal with truly need our confidentiality. They need that assurance. And the issue of the workers who leave our department having access to information after the fact was something that we immediately addressed with HR. Upon leaving the department, HR immediately identifies the IT, the information technology component of the department, so that access is terminated. And that's something, I think, Mr. Chair, that is extremely important. And we certainly will endeavour to keep the cap on any issues about around accountability and especially around confidentiality.
The honourable member for Preston.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. Chair, I'm getting slipping up here again today. It's awful. It's one other thing that was identified, and this is something that would be a little bit more difficult for the department to control, would be individuals sharing passwords. Well, that's got a really serious problem, but I don't know how you control someone telling someone else that their password to do something. That's probably as scary or as bad for the individual that's sharing the password, not knowing how potentially dangerous that could be, as a person getting it also is dangerous for them, and it's also very dangerous for the department, because something could be approved by somebody that you have no idea has the authority to approve it, and then indeed the person that did have the authority is on the block for it or responsible for it and doesn't know anything about it. And it pretty well cause a real serious problem. But in one case, they identified 5 individuals that shared the same access to the computer and processing of electronic funds transfer. Well, that's pretty serious. What kind of a process did you put in place to correct that? And I'd like some detailed information on that if I could.
The Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And again, the issue of the confidentiality and the accountability is extremely important. Information technology has made life easier in some instances, and in other instances, Mr. Chair, it has become more of a challenge. And if the honourable member will allow me to just relate a personal experience for a moment, it raised the issue for me personally and shocked me. Last year, I had the unfortunate experience of having my vehicle broken into and my purse stolen. My wallet was taken, and all of my information, of course, was then made available to the thief. In a matter of 40 minutes, that's all it took me to realize that the purse was gone, to get home, to make the call to the police department. In a matter of 40 minutes, my Visa account had been accessed through an ATM machine. I had called and canceled my cards immediately, and so that was on the record. I was shocked that someone could have accessed my Visa account. My debit card had not been accessed. My Visa account had been. And the interesting part for me was, I do not use my Visa account to do the withdrawals from the ATM machines. I don't even know what that password would be. So when I contacted my bank the next day, and we know that there was a withdrawal made, and I worked with the RCMP, and et cetera. When we contacted the bank the next day, it was their policy not to refund money to a certain amount, but they said to me, you have never, we can see all your records, you have never accessed your Visa account through an ATM machine. And I said, that's correct. Well, they said, we're really quite flabbergasted that another individual was able to. And it just drove home the entire issue to me of the importance of that IT security. And this was an unfortunate experience for me. I was fortunate in that the bank worked with the RCMP and were able to assist me in that, but it was disturbing. So I thank my honourable colleague for allowing me to relate that personal experience, because it is a concern to me. And when I read the information that was just quoted, when I read it for the first time upon receiving the Auditor General's report and discussed it with the deputy, those are challenges that we cannot sidestep. And it is, first and foremost, it is contrary to the policy of the department to share passwords or to share that access. It goes directly to, of course, the issue of supervision. And again, I have got phenomenal individuals working in the department, and I know that they work to the best of their ability, and I know that they do, within their ability, they do phenomenal service. So it doesn't negate, though, that personal responsibility that goes along with the very important role that they have with that confidential information at hand. So I don't make light of it. I acknowledge that it's a concern. We do have a policy and a process in place if it's a disciplinary issue, but it's that supervision, it's that contrary to policy, and then that personal onus that is first and foremost. And if the situation demands additional action and disciplinary action, then certainly the supervisors and the department staff fulfill that.
The honourable member for Preston.
Thank you very much, and it's a difficult, I know it was a very difficult thing to answer, because how do you control what individuals do when they're doing their job properly and their co-workers are trusted by their fellow co-workers. But it's an issue that really is difficult to cure, difficult to address, but really you have to be aware of it and have to work towards that, and maybe put some penalties in place for people that do that. The other thing was that that electronic bank fund transfers. I know the Department of Community Service only has a partially documented process for that, and that could be troubling. I know with the department dealing with so much money and so many programs, that it would be pretty easy for someone to siphon off $100,000 or $200,000 if there's no real way to audit it and track it on a regular basis through the system. Now you can reprogram your computer systems to automatically alert somebody that this has happened, that should be responsible for it. And I wonder if the protocol has been put in place to monitor these electronic bank transfers in the department, that monitors all of them, to hopefully identify any mistakes that might have been made, or any errors, or any fraudulent activity. And again, I stress, I know of no fraudulent activity, and I'm not saying there is any, but I'm just saying that is there a way to make sure that the opportunity isn't there for that activity?
The Honourable the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And you know, the issue of the direct deposit and accountability, again, is one that is very important. Direct deposit is sometimes safer than putting the check in the mail, of course, because the direct deposit goes into the account, and it's less likely for theft to occur en route, if you will. So in that instance, and I know a lot of people in this room, I'm sure, use direct deposit because of its convenience. And so some of our clientele do prefer the direct deposit. We still do mail out a phenomenal amount of checks on a regular basis, and we'll continue to offer that opportunity and that option to our clientele as well. But the ICM project, the ICM commitment itself, the integrated case management system itself, is reflective of that accountability, and that program, that system, will monitor the exact types of things that the member brings forward. And as well, we did have a special engagement with the CA firm Deloitte to ensure they came and they audited, they came and they looked at our system, they came and they worked with our employees, with our folks, to ensure that as humanly possible, the accountability, the checks and balances were in place. So that was done as part of the ICM. Should that be required again, then that's certainly something that I would consider. At this stage, we need to see how ICM fulfills its mandate. We have every expectation that it will do exactly as the Auditor General had indicated and hopes that it will do, and so certainly we'll monitor that closely in the days to come.
The honourable member for Preston.
Thank you. Have you set a protocol up for internal checks, either through when I say internal, I mean someone like an outside auditing firm or whatever the case may be, or the Auditor General, to check what you've done and to make sure that down the road that these things can't happen again? In other words, that's not a very direct question, but the question is important. In other words, you go into an electronic system and you make corrections because you've identified problems. Now, every time you identify a problem, fix that problem, there's always other problems that become obvious over time. And typically the people that work with the systems find the shortcuts and the systems through it to do their work easier and better through the day. And when you find those shortcuts and things like that, they usually find some ways that you can't audit it because it's not in a box that you would normally just click on and say, okay, here's this, ask a question, you fill the blank in. But, and people are very, and good employees are very astute at doing this thing, making their work easier and not thinking anything of it. But someone that would want to go through the system, or maybe they're doing it in a way to get something done easier, that's the way that should be done, but maybe it's not recording that it's actually costing all this, and all of a sudden you get a void somewhere in the system. What audit system you have, or what audit protocol do you have to internally check this on a regular basis? Is you've got a program in place, or you're thinking about putting it in place, or how do you go about this process? I'm really looking for a continuous audit process to ensure that your system doesn't have any holes in it which will keep popping up in any program you have. It doesn't matter what it is or how good it is. There's always some little loopholes in it. How do you audit that on an ongoing basis to keep identifying those things? And one question about that is, do you engage the staff when they do find these things and they say, okay, I found this weird thing on the computer today. What is it? And then someone that can go through that process and identify it and correct the problem.
Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And the technical aspects, I was smiling to myself when I was sitting here because, of course, my honourable colleague from Cape Breton was concerned that I have the social worker component here with me to ensure that those challenges are at the forefront. And now I'm extremely pleased that I have my financial guru here, who not that the other George couldn't answer it, but so it proves the point, I think, Mr. Chair, that balance in the department is important, is essential, and so my honourable colleague is making the point that the two Georges have a service here, and they're both doing a great job at it. So the Auditor General's report that the member referenced indeed did present some challenges. As the member knows, the Auditor General investigates and reports on an annual basis any number of components that he chooses, that they may see fit to. As a result of that audit, we had the Deloitte engagement, the special engagement, because we were so concerned and we did take it so seriously. And we filed that independent report with the Auditor General. So the Auditor General was able to see what the independent audit from Deloitte provided as feedback. So we have provided that. As well, we do have the Provincial Internal Audit Group that functions through the Department of Finance, and we have our own group, our own component of that exists, that routinely does auditing and routinely keeps those checks and balances in place. And the protocols are essential, and there needs to be consistency. And so I'm pleased to know that there is a provincial internal audit with a set of protocols, because I think that that's important to go across the board, across the jurisdictions. And my colleague asks if staff are engaged, and as needed, if there are instances where staff are, as indicated, there's no malice intended. It's simply a matter of finding ways to work that work for them. However, if they don't coincide with those auditing principles, then of course staff need to understand that. So they are engaged as need be, and we'll continue to ensure that they stay engaged at the early stages, so it doesn't become a punitive, but more so as a helpful component, because I think that that's important. I don't think that we should, and I know my honourable colleague wasn't suggesting this, I don't think that we should assume that those situations are out of malice. I think we assume that, and we've heard it said, that the folks who work in our department are hardworking individuals. They do a great job, and the stresses that they have, if sometimes we can find ways to make a situation work for us, we do it without realizing that it may be putting some other component at risk.
Order, please.
And so I certainly appreciate the honourable member's recognition of that. Thank you.
Order. The time has expired for the member from Preston, and I'll now recognize the honourable member for Dartmouth North.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm going to pass this off to the minister in hopes that she will continue on her comments regarding the status of the advisory committee.
The Honourable, the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I am going back through my notes because there were a few things that yes, here we are, page 3. A few things that I wanted to reference regarding the advisory committee. And again, I ended off by commending my colleague for taking that initiative. I would encourage others, even though some may be in this chamber longer than some of the new ones, and my colleague came to the chamber just shortly after I did. I was here a little bit longer through a by-election, Mr. Chair, but not much longer. So I would encourage even those members who've been here longer, because we can always learn more. And so the comments by my colleague about the advisory committee are ones that I take very seriously, and I appreciate, because I know that they come from personal experience. So we were talking about the ability for that committee, through its structure, through its mandate, to truly function to the best of its ability. And we mentioned the fact that a 2-year period may be more beneficial, and I certainly would not be against that, Mr. Chair. I also wanted to mention the fact that engaging voluntary committees, engaging groups and individuals is extremely important, because they have to know that the work they do is valuable. If we simply pay lip service or satisfy a requirement, there is no value to it, then one would get discouraged. And individuals perhaps would think that the commitment that they're making, that they've made, is not valued. I don't want that to be the case with any of the agencies, boards, or commissions that fall under my purview. So I have a couple of ideas, and I'll share those with the member now, and as well get some more feedback from him as time permits. I think it's important that we recognize that through an initiative of the Executive Council of the government, we did introduce new governance rules and regulations for agencies, boards, and commissions. I was at a presentation that was made by the Deputy Minister Bob Fowler, where they talked about the mandate of agencies, boards, and commissions. They talked about the engaging of those agencies, boards, and commissions, and it may be that that this group needs to have that presentation made to them. And so I will take that back to the Deputy Minister. I will ask that that offer be made to them, and if they decide that they would like to be part and parcel of that that training component of that new governance structure communication, that they be offered that that opportunity. As well, going back to my teaching days, workshopping and doing workshops with individuals is extremely important, and it may be that that the committee would be interested in doing some type of workshop in the proper functioning of a committee. It's always challenging when you get different individuals who have different experiences and different outlooks to come together and work cohesively. So it may be, Mr. Chair, that they would benefit from some type of workshopping. I do know that we provide orientation training for all new members of the committee. That orientation training includes covering their cost of travel, and so we will continue to do that, Mr. Chair. But an option may be that that a workshopping of some type they may find beneficial. As well, Mr. Chair, I would offer to the member that at any time, should the committee request to meet with me, at any time, should the committee want to discuss issues that they have in front of them, my door is open. I would invite them to contact the office and make that request, and I certainly would be more than pleased to fulfill that request, Mr. Chair.
The honourable member for Dartmouth North.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the comments made by the Minister. I want to just try to reiterate the importance that I believe that this committee in its role has, not just to yourself or the department, but to Nova Scotians, again, that have been affected by it. And I'd be remiss to not point out the fact that several of the members that sit on this committee, one in particular is a representative of you and of your department. Someone sits from Children's Aid, but still these members can't come or find a reason to show up. And I think, like I said, I'll go back to some of the comments that those two individuals made to me during my first presentation. There was a general feeling that, and you had stated it yourself, that they felt that their views or opinions or a report that was going to come out of this potentially weren't as important as they should be. And again, I'll go back to some earlier comments that I made, that individuals that sit on this committee, and in particular the two individuals that were there to see the presentations, had stated to me how important they believed that this committee was in serving those individuals that had been affected by this and needed to have their stories heard, which would be conveyed to yourself and to your department to better suit the system. So I encourage you to bring forward some changes. I definitely hope that this continues to be an annual process, even though there are potentially 2-year terms. I still think that we should be looking into this, maybe a semi-annual report. This is an important part. I'm going to stay on child welfare, child protection for a little bit. I want to move into foster care. And there's been, over the years, numerous stories that have come out of the department, not just in this province, but other provinces, most recently in New Brunswick, with some particularly sad situations. In saying that, there are, I believe, probably a whole host of better stories than negative stories. And I want to focus on those individuals that provide the service to the department, provide the services to individuals that are in care of the province. One of the concerns with the foster care system that's been brought to my attention recently has been the levels of per diems. And I'm wondering if the Minister can elaborate as to where those levels are at currently, from my knowledge, when was the last increase, And when can those individuals that are providing such good care, quality care to use in care of the province, when can they expect a potential raise in per diems so that they can better deal with the situations that they're being thrust upon them now? Individuals that are coming, youth that are coming to their homes with more complex problems.
The Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and pleased to have my honourable colleague back. Not that I don't appreciate the others, but but I know my honourable colleague has lots of issues that he wants to discuss here today. Let's go back to the advisory committee for just a moment, and then I'm going to move on to the foster family challenges. The challenging issues that surround that committee make it very sensitive. And I hope that those challenging issues do not discourage them, but make them stronger. And so I want to reiterate so that my colleague understands that I'm serious with these suggestions, that workshopping to build a cohesive connection amongst the committee members, additional training if requested, and covering the costs of that for the members, and the offer to meet with me at any time. Those three are solid offers that I can make here this morning. And I know that my colleague will respect and agree that voluntary is key here, and that the minister not interfere, that I not overstep my boundaries and interfere in the functioning of that committee, because it's that independence that they need to truly be able to be honest with me upon their reporting. So we'll continue to walk that fine line and work in a collaborative way to better facilitate the group than a punitive. And I know that's not what my colleague was suggesting, but I want to say that for the record, that it's that collaborative manner that I think is so important. Now, to get to the issue of the foster families, you know, it truly is moving to meet with the over 700 foster families in this province. And I haven't met all 700, but I've met quite a few. I've had the opportunity to attend functions, and I've had the opportunity to attend organized structured meetings with the Nova Scotia Association of Foster Families, who meet with the minister on a routine basis. They work with the department. I was pleased with the meeting that we had just recently. They are an amazing group of individuals who very honestly said to me, we are here because we care, we want to stay because we care, and we need your help to continue to do that. They were telling me about the advances and some of the nationwide recognition they were getting. We have the Canadian president as part of our Nova Scotia Association of Foster Families. Quite an achievement. We're bringing a national or an international conference in the out years here to Halifax, and we want to work with them to ensure that we do the best possible job at that to highlight Nova Scotia and the things that are going on here. And some of their best practices are being celebrated across the nation, and they should be very proud of that. All of that said, they do a great job. They provide a service for me as minister, but more importantly for the children and the families in this province. And the members are the first to admit that there are some challenges for them. They were very blunt and very honest in bringing those challenges to me, and I appreciated that, because it would be irresponsible of me to not acknowledge that there are challenges out there. So the issue of the per diems is one that I did hear loud and clear. I know the ministers who have come before me and the governments who have come before us have felt those same pressures. This government increased the per diem last fiscal by 5%. That was a welcome increase by the foster families. Again, could they like more? Absolutely. At this stage, that was the increase that was able to be provided by the department. Now, I was pleased to be able to announce to them at that meeting I had with them in March that the commitment of the department was, as of April 1st, to increase their mileage rate, something else that they had been calling for. And so they were very appreciative of that, and I know that they went away from the meeting knowing that, that their concerns had been addressed and that they were being listened to, and that while they will continue to work within the structure that they have, they know that government and indeed the Department of Community Services is listening, and we'll continue to work with that very valuable resource of over 700 foster families in the days to come.
The honourable member for Dartmouth North.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I guess the second part of my question is, when could we expect another per diem increase? And maybe I'll let you comment on that afterwards, but definitely the mileage increase will assist them with some of the providing a better service to those that are in their care. I'm going to move on to a particular situation that, and after this, I'm going to wrap up childcare and I'll move on and child welfare. I had an unfortunate situation that I consider brought to my attention in recent months. And again, my need to seek out knowledge as to how the system worked. I had actually had viewed a child apprehension, and it was a very disturbing situation to see how the process actually goes and the effect that it has on a young family. After that, my next role in dealing with these individuals was to investigate as to how things had escalated to this point. I met later on with the two individuals that had just had their fifth child taken away from them. I met with them over a series of days and through investigation from their side, of course, went through the history as to how a young family could have 5 children possibly taken away from them. What went wrong? The story begins with an individual that had reached out to the department. Unbeknownst to the mother, who was experiencing mental health issues, she had reached out and called the department and said, I need help. I'm scared for myself and I'm scared for my children. Can you help me? The process thus began with child protection. The department had met with the individual, explained the situation. It was mental health, there was suicide involved. This individual needed the help. Was told, yes, we'll have the help. What had taken place was child protection went in and immediately started to ramp up a case or an investigation as to the behaviors of the children, the behaviors of the parents in relation to the children, and how that process was being carried out. Within 2 months, the children were apprehended, 4 at that time. During those 2 months, 3 months, that individual did not receive any help from the department for the issues that she had first contacted them for. To me, that's unfortunate. There's some health department questions, but in particular, Department of Community Service, I believe, if communication was right, could have guided them through. What had taken place was child protection went in and made the case. 4 beautiful young children got taken away from this young family. I'm just wondering what programs are in place, have maybe been in place, could potentially be in place to assist the family. The best interest of the children, the best interest of these 2 individuals who had raised these children, asking for help, not getting it, then having the children taken away from them. I can tell you today that the mental health issues didn't get dealt with until the 4 children got taken away, and that was done on the onus of the mother and the father, who went away from the department, went away from the representatives of the department, and seeked out the help for themselves and have finally gotten it. However, based on previous cases, the department, what happens with the department is this young mother got pregnant. She has the 5th child. But she's informed, because of previous behaviors and previous apprehensions of the 4 children, this child is now going into permanent care, automatic. I have concern because when an individual reaches out for help, they didn't get it. Something else entirely different happened. And the day that I witnessed the apprehension, and you can imagine as a mother, the anguish and the frustration of not just a father, but the feelings of a mother who has just had a child that she'd born taken away. Child protection didn't come in the very first day and take the child. The child went in, and they were notified the first day that it was going into permanent care, but they waited 5 days to take that child. 5 days of bonding time. And when they apprehended the child, I spoke with the social worker at the IWK, and that social worker, who had been working with the IWK for many years, had expressed to me some of her concerns that she had seen with the system, with the process. And knowing that there is a process and we need to protect the children, absolutely. The frustration in this particular situation is that we sent 2 individuals home with their 5th child apprehended, with many questions around 4 that were in protection. One individual in particular, the youngest, who had bounced around to 12 different foster homes, who had developed behavioral problems. But we still have 2 individuals out there wondering what happened. All I did was ask for help. Can you tell me what programs are available, what programs could be available to keep, in the best interest of the children, those children with their family in times of need like this, whether it's communications with Department of Health? I think it's crucial, if we can, and I believe it's mandated by the department, to keep the children within the family. What steps are taken now? What steps could we take to better the process?
The Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And the specifics of any case, as my honourable colleague knows, are always of a confidential matter, and I know he respects the fact that I will talk about programming and opportunities. And I know this case has troubled my honourable colleague, because I know that he has brought it to the staff, to the department, and I don't belittle that. I know that it has troubled him, and I absolutely concur that as a parent, it makes it more real, and I know that that's why we find these child protection issues so very difficult to deal with. So I will attempt to deal with it from a program perspective, and I will attempt to put my emotions aside as we discuss the program perspective, because that's where I'll try and stay focused. There is no question, anyone in this room who has had to deal with issues surrounding child protection, child welfare, it is challenging. And whether you are the parent, whether you are the advocate, whether you are the lawyer in the courtroom, it is a difficult thing to do to put yourself in that family's life and know that what you're about to do will have everlasting effect. And so, as my colleague indicated, it is the mandate of the department that we support families, that when at all possible, unless we know the child to be in danger, when at all possible, we allow the child to remain in the family home. And the resources, the services, the programs that we can put in place to facilitate that, I believe, pay for themselves 100-fold, because it's that preventative manner that we speak so often of that is key here. What we have learnt through, and I'll go back to my nun experience, what we have learnt through nun has been overwhelming if you're to just look at it from a stand-back perspective. What we have learnt is that we have a phenomenal amount of resources out there. We just don't always get them to the individuals in the manner and the time when they need them. And we also know that there's an onus upon the individuals to accept that help. And the families and or the youth have a responsibility to accept that assistance as well. We know that we have to work with health. We know we have to work with education, health promotion, justice. We have to work with them all. Because the very situation that my honorable colleague brings up highlights the need for the services to be provided when a family needs the most is when they are the most vulnerable. And the keeping in place of the child or the removal of the child isn't the end of the issue. It's only the beginning. And so when a family does reach out, we need to ensure that our social workers, our programming, our counseling programs, our parenting programs, and we have a wealth of them. We need to ensure that they are made available to the parents, to the families from the get-go, but even before that would be you know, a perfect world. But they're available to them right at the beginning of the stage. How we do that is part of the strategy that we will be rolling out. How we better do that is part of the creation of the Family and Children Division of the department, because it will be under the direction that we culminate those programs and those services, and we then educate our social workers. We then assist our folks in the school system, our family resource centers, our justice partners, that we then educate those individuals and empower those individuals to provide those programs to the parents on the ground. Because there's no question that the protection of those children is the utmost importance. Protecting them in place or protecting them out of place is equally as important. So I hope some of those words have helped respond to my colleagues' questions. And as we move forward with none, I am really looking forward to the opportunity to actually put those programs in place on the ground where they truly belong.
Honourable Member for Dartmouth North.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the comments made by the Minister. I know that I mean, being a mother, you have to realize the importance of this. And unfortunately, an incident like Teresa McAvoy that's had to bring all this to light. You know, it's sad to say that someone had to pass to open our eyes. And in the 10 months that I have been elected, I've been fortunate enough and able to contact the department, work with some of the staff, and have been able to remedy a lot of situations to benefit Nova Scotians. And not just from Dartmouth North, from around Nova Scotia. In saying that, I hope that at some point we get to the place where I won't have to approach the department, that these things automatically happen. I want to finish up with childcare by saying this. I'm very, very affected by this because, like I said, it's probably 6 of the 10 months I've been elected, I've had numerous occasions to deal with so many of the issues and families that have been affected by this. And seeing someone get beyond this, seeing not just the parent, but knowing that the child is actually getting everything that they want. And I spoke yesterday in regards to one particular situation where an individual had been in care at the age of 7.5, and now they're 16, and the lack of abilities that individual has to cope with today's world. And I think where we failed, we have to learn from that. And one of the things that I'm looking into now is a model that's actually used in New Zealand. And it's been used since 1989. Legislation was drafted up. They realized the importance of this issue. And before a child in New Zealand is actually taken out or removed from the home, what takes place is once the department is notified, the department goes and rallies around the youth, the child that is affected by it. And this is all legislated. And what they do with that system is they grab 10, 15 people that have the best interest of that child at hand, and they sit down. There's a conference. And all the issues are raised to the family and to the individual affected by it, the youth, the child. And again, this is all legislated. And what happens then is they're presented with some of the problems that the department's been presented with. And then everyone steps out of a room and the family discuss it. And then everyone comes back into the room and we find a solution. Someone has to take control. Someone has to have upfront the best interest of that child at hand. And I think it's the department in New Zealand's choice to make sure that it's someone in close relation to that child. So I'm looking forward to investigating that further, discussing it, perhaps with the department, potentially bringing legislation forward to make improvements with the system. And again, I just want to finish by saying that I know there are some good quality people in the department, within the foster care system, the social workers, but I want to stress that it's bringing everyone together instead of taking someone from their families and putting them in a system, putting them in a group home where they're removed, where they have all kinds of freedom, which incurs a lot of other pressures. They breach their curfews, and they're wandering around. And I think we have to really get into looking at that individual, put all the resources up front, and say, this is the path, and I need you to be committed to it because everyone around you is committed to it. And I think upon my investigation, I do hope to bring forward similar legislation that occurs in New Zealand. I'm going to move on to housing, and as was stated earlier by many colleagues, as you're well aware of, the housing situation in Nova Scotia is, I honestly believe we're in a crisis as far as affordable housing. You know, we've had an opportunity with funding from the federal government in the years past. There was a mandate of 1,500 units to be built out of the phase one of the housing. I believe in a housing presentation to the Standing Committee in October, it was stated that 556 were actually created. In this year's business plan, the phase two, the $18.9 million, and I'm going to read from the business plan, 5.2.1 under priorities. Funding valued at $18.9 million will generate approximately 200 housing units over the life of the agreement. These funds will be invested in new rental housing preservation, homeowner preservation. The target for 2007-2008 is to commit 40% of the $18.9 million. On page 5.2.2, performance measures, the target for 2007-2008 of 40% or 80 units committed. And then the target for March 2009 is another additional 200. Now, I'm not balking at the fact that it sounds like there's more going to be created, but can you just clarify that for me? And perhaps tell me if the department has an idea as to where some of this construction for affordable housing will take place in the province.
Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And it's just to go back to the original issue. I just have a couple of comments that I want to add regarding child welfare. There's no question that my colleague is correct in that the working together of all the departments and all the stakeholders is extremely valuable and important. And we all know that that the best place to raise a child is in the family environment and circumstance. When that does not occur, then it is essential that all those who are able to participate in the direction of that family or that child, that they all play a role. And I say when able. If a child, of course, is too young, then that I remove them from the discussion. But the case conferencing is extremely important. And I know that it is mandated under the Act for mediation to take place. I certainly would encourage more of that to take place. That's certainly a direction we will be going in, I would anticipate, as a fallout of accepting all the recommendations of none. I'm sure that we will find more and more components of the Act that need to be incorporated. So certainly additional mediation. Typically now the mediation would take place at a more of a court level, so we need to do it before it gets to that level, to ensure that if and when possible, we can have that done in advance of that. The New Zealand model sounds very interesting, and certainly I would be more than happy to discuss that further. And I'm sure that that George and the officials in the department have had a good long look at those other models in other jurisdictions and have some insight in that as well. So, so I certainly do, and the thought that came to my mind, I wrote it down here with a little asterisk beside it. I know you've heard it, I know you've likely said it, that it takes a village to raise a child. And whether that village is your family in its entirety, in a traditional sense or a more modern sense, whether your family involves professionals, social workers, caseworkers, it does indeed take that entire group. And so the structure of the village may change, but I think the intent of that proverb is still there. So anything that we can do to ensure that, I think, is very important. So we go from that very emotional, very important issue to one that is equally as important, a little less emotional. So let's move to housing for a moment, because that one is a little less emotional. My honourable colleague knows well that the commitment through the federal government in cooperation with the provincial government is approximately $90 million over a 7-8 year period. That involves phase 1 of the housing, the affordable housing from the federal government. Of phase 1, which has all been committed, so all of the dollars and all of the proposals have been moved out. They include rent supplements, they include home preservation, new rental, new construction, 928 units, 928 components of that are at varying stages. The list I have before me indicates that 273 have been completed and are occupiable or occupied. That 270 are currently under construction in one mode, by one means or another. That 114 have not been started for one reason or another, and we can get into the details of that. And that 178 home preservations have been completed. Along with that, of course, goes we also have the university housing, the student housing project that we rolled out with the 30 spots for university students that was part of that funding. And of that, there are 18 university students who are taking advantage of that student housing option available to them. So why? Why are we at a stage where we have 273 completed and not 928 completed? So much of that, unfortunately, is out of our hands. And that goes to the issue of contractors, construction. We compete with the construction industry for home construction, for big projects, and labor shortages, as they pertain to every jurisdiction in this country, are existent here in Nova Scotia as well. We also have some challenges as they pertain to land issues. There are a couple of projects that are on hold and have not taken off because they have land issue situations. Those need to be resolved either in court or with municipalities as those issues come forward. The other challenge, of course, is that we know the pressures are there. The monies have been committed. We're not rolling those dollars back. They will continue to stay in place. Over the next couple of months, we know that quite a few of those projects, and I could list them individually or provide the list to the member after, outside of the chamber, which may be easier for time's sake, of individual projects that will be taking place. The project that I was just at last week in the honourable member's riding of Halifax Fairview, 23 units that was opened, that was announced. A very successful project, and we were pleased to be able to be there, partnering with the Department of Energy, with the federal government, to ensure that that we celebrated those success stories. So we would love to have more success stories, and we need the cooperation of all those external forces to be at play with us. But we remain committed to that to those first phase. If the member would like as well, I would like to commit or to comment on the phase 2 of the housing proposals. And I will take just a moment to say that those RFPs went out. The RFPs for phase 2, the $18.9 million, the The RFP's closed February the 15th. I would anticipate that we would be able to work with the individuals who have made those proposals and get word back to them by early spring, mid-spring, as to the success of those projects, and look forward to rolling those out so that as the construction industry picks up, those individuals will be able to plan their scheduling.
Honourable Member for Dartmouth North.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To stay with housing, I was in the presentation that your department made to the Standing Committee back in October. I was pleased to see that in Phase 2, $7.8 million was going to be made available for off-reserve Aboriginals. I just want to say that based on the plan, what's been put in this plan, it says consultations with Aboriginal organizations, and the Provincial Office of Aboriginal Affairs, an investment of 20% of the $7.8 million off-reserve Aboriginal Housing Trust funds will be made. Is that this year? And when the consultations took place, was it the bans in the consultation, or did the department go out and seek out the off-reserve zones that are across this province and actually talk to the off-reserve zones and the zone leaders to get their feedback as to what was necessary for them and the off-reserve Aboriginal people in our society today, what they actually really need, because there's sometimes some ill feelings between the off-reserve and the actual band chiefs as to what services should be provided for the off-reserve. The off-reserve Aboriginal people never give up their heritage or forget their heritage, yet they just choose not to live on a reservation. So I think it's important, and I was very pleased to see that housing is going to be made available to those individuals, because the levels of poverty not only exist on reserve, but off reserve as well. So just wondering if the zones were a part of that consultation, and if that 20% is going to be rolled out immediately as well with the beginning of the Phase 2.
The Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And indeed, the off-reserve Aboriginal Trust was welcomed by this government from the federal government. And we all know the challenges that come with the First Nations communities, and the honourable member hit a few of those challenges right on. We rely on all sorts of experts in our line of work, and one of the experts that we are relying on quite heavily is the Provincial Office of Aboriginal Affairs, because it's through that provincial office that has established the relationships with the on-reserve and off-reserve communities that we can best benefit from. For us to attempt to negotiate independently would prove challenging and potentially difficult for both the off-reserve and the on-reserve. So we want to ensure that we do it with as much delicacy and diplomacy as we can, and so we will continue to work with Aboriginal organizations through the Provincial Office of Aboriginal Affairs. And specifically of the $7.8 million this year, we have every intention of, and we are budgeting $1.56 million in collaboration with those organizations and department.
The Honourable Member for Dartmouth North.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very, very pleased to see as part of the business plan, surprisingly. And again, I hope that, there's a premise being set out there regarding the environment that politicians are now catching on to a hot topic. My same hope is that eventually we all catch on to the hot topic of poverty as well, because it affects us all, young, old. It's throughout our society in every way. In regards to housing, you've heard me speak many times, Madam Minister, on the fact of rising rents in the HRM area in particular. Seniors on fixed income, individuals on the ESIA program, shelter allowances just aren't adequate enough. So I know the burden of a budget, fiscally responsible. I want to emphasize, you know, as much effort as possible to get those units built, to make those available to individuals. But surprisingly, in the business plan, I want to read this for those that may be home watching this. I'm going to keep this one in my office because I think it's an interesting undertaking by your government regarding this situation. I think it's interesting and will be of interest to those organizations, the many organizations that have approached your government, our caucus, and the third party, the Liberal caucus as well. They'll be interested in finding or reading in the business plan an undertake of a homeless review project. And I'm going to read this, like I said, for those individuals that may be out there actually watching this. The department has established a homelessness working group consisting of representatives of all levels of government and community-based agencies who provide services to homeless individuals and those at risk of being homeless. And there's many in our society that are just at risk, potentially. In 2007-2008, the working group will examine the current homelessness situation in Nova Scotia and identify gaps in the current array of programs and services. So, my obvious question is, who makes up this group, and when would we, not as the opposition, but when will the public be able to witness a review that may come out of this group evaluation?
Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And you know, surprises can be delightful. When we think about the issues of estimates and business plans, we don't very often find things that surprise us in a positive manner. So I will make sure that the folks at the department know that they have provided some delightful surprise for my honourable colleague in this manner. Mr. Chair, homelessness is an issue. Unfortunately, it's one of those issues that we do have to deal with. It's like my honourable colleague from Cape Breton was saying earlier. He wished that someday we wouldn't have to have the Department of Community Services. It's the same issue with homelessness. And homelessness is one of those concerns that, depending on where you live, you may not even realize it's going on. In our rural communities, we have different challenges than we do in our urban centers for various reasons. And I would venture to say that this is likely one of those instances where the homelessness issue truly is more prevalent in the urban centers. Tends to be where those folks gravitate for different reasons, but it tends to be where those folks do gravitate. We were very pleased with the commitment of the federal government to invest in this new federal initiative, the Homelessness Partnering Strategy, that represents over $207 million over 2 years. Of course, nationwide, not just for Nova Scotia. I would have liked to have had it all for Nova Scotia, but it's nationwide. So we know that our portion of that will become evident to us in the days to come as the federal government rolls out the parameters and the particulars around that program. We also know that the shelters, the community groups that provide the services that they do for our homeless are again invaluable. We've invested, this government has invested and will continue to invest in the Phoenix House project here in Halifax, in Pendleton Place, in the Salvation Army funding as they move forward with some of their expansion and program ideas. We will continue to invest with them. And so those are some ways that we can financially on the ground invest. The issue of the committee that the member referenced, the homelessness working group, is being established. It's a work in progress as we continue to determine who needs, all those groups that I identified would play a key role as they are on the ground. They are the ones who are best equipped to know what's actually happening out there. We will engage those groups and those community organizations, along with the experts who make it their business to understand the challenges, the gaps that are there. We sometimes don't realize that there are gaps. We think we've got all the bases covered, and we don't, so we will engage those individuals. And there are lots of community advocate groups who have a true understanding, who are independent and apart from government, who can provide some very valuable information and knowledge for us. So as we become more clear in the days to come, we'll roll out the specifics, and we look forward to what we can all learn together to advance the issue of homelessness.
The honourable member for Dartmouth North.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the things that obviously I'm pleased to see that your department would undertake such a project. A particular line in there that I was pleased to see is those at risk of being homeless. And I understand, and we, as we walk out of here today, we see individuals that are affected by this. Those individuals that are there now in that situation, but those that are at risk, and I know in particular in my community that's comprised of more than 60% multi-unit dwellings, comprised of two, I'll call them conglomerate rental property owners who continuously raise rents, and it's those, again, individuals that are on the ESIA programs, those individuals, seniors in particular, that are on fixed incomes, that when their rents go up over $600 for a one-bedroom apartment in Dartmouth North, they're the ones that are coming to me saying, well, eventually, if the rent gets too high, I won't have a place to live. So those are people that are at risk. My leader, the honourable leader of the opposition, in the late debate the other night, had cited situations where there are seniors and usually a widow or widower that's living in their homes that, with the rising costs of heat and lights and food and whatnot and insurances, those individuals are on the brink of becoming homeless potentially. So I'm looking forward to seeing the progress on this in particular, and potentially seeing what comes out of an eventual report, perhaps in a year's time, or to see the actual direction that the province plays in accordance with what happens federally, as you had made mention. I want to touch on an issue that had taken place, or that came up. As you know, the Forum on Poverty that the Standing Committee on Community Services held last year. Again, this year we met with the organizations that presented last year. We wanted an update and to get a feeling as to where the 7 recommendations had gone that were presented to the department, where those organizations felt the level of poverty was being addressed by the department and by the government of this province. One of the key issues that came up, a very heated topic, and again, in the coming days you'll be presented, or coming months you'll be presented with recommendations from the Standing Committee on this one particular factor. And it's to do with the clawback, the 30/70 clawback. You can tie it in with the back to work programs, the harvest programs. In society today, there's a myth that individuals are thriving and surviving on what they get as far as their benefits on ESIA, the personal allowance, and the shelter allowance. There are individuals in our society today that think they are robbing the taxpayers. They are milking the system, they're lazy and whatnot. To those individuals, they don't realize the actual allotments that those individuals affected by this get. They don't realize that those individuals are living on sometimes less than $10,000 below the poverty line. When we talk about a client-focused process, and again, that's one of the strategic goals of this business plan, I'm pleased to hear that that is a goal, because when it lends itself to this particular policy, the 30/70 split, and I brought it up last year in the budgets, and I'll bring it up this year because, like I said, in the second year of the Forum on Poverty, it's still an issue today. We need, as the Minister of Economic Development makes mention, as the Minister of Environment made mention the other night in the late debate, as my colleagues in the third party, the Liberal Party, made, we need to uplift individuals. We have to get them back out there in the work process. It's one thing to have programs, but it's the client focus. It's navigating them through the system, allowing them, those individuals, to have the ability to have some income. And when I look at the split, and I hope you'll, and I know you will, you'll look at the recommendations that come out of that standing committee of perhaps developing a sliding scale. Taking a harvest program where I know it benefits rural Nova Scotia, it benefits the farmers who a lot of times have to go outside the province to find workers. But you know, when the program was announced again in the fall, you know, a reporter calls me and he wants my opinion on it. Well, in my particular area, and as you know, a lot of the clients on community services are disabled, so need not apply. A lot of individuals are single-parent families, so unless I can take someone, a single mother in particular from Dartmouth North, and transfer them up to the Annapolis Valley to pick apples, and also provide them with childcare somehow, it's not an issue. One of the other things that was raised, and this is my question in and around the clawback and in and around programs such as the Harvest Program in particular, would you entertain the idea of and again, you'd have to speak with the Economic Development Minister. I think it's a great opportunity. Could we spread that program across the province, across all industry, across all sectors? Can we make that $3,000 extra available not only for harvest programs, but in other industries as well? Because that little extra will be that incentive. Instead of the 30, if we perhaps give 50, it'll allow an individual to say, okay, it feels good working. It feels getting up in the day. I'm making a little bit of money, and it's a little bit more than what the system will allow. Because a lot of what's centered around that policy, what happens, is individuals are put in a position where they have to choose. And I know you've heard it, and I know the former Minister of Community Services has heard it as well. We have to give, and again, individuals living on sometimes less than $10,000 a year on the poverty line. So as the taxpayers out there saying, no, we're not giving them, we're giving them extra, but it's not a whole lot of money. What I'd like to see is an individual say, yes, it feels good getting up every day and going to work. It feels good taking that step into something that may become a full-time job. But unfortunately, without that, and you know as well with the Career Seek programs, we have single mothers that need that little extra financial support because it's difficult when you're raising a child for childcare or extra food or transportation. They need that extra money. So I want to ask you, would your department entertain perhaps communicating with other departments and spreading that across all of industry, all sectors, to better allow an individual to make that choice to come off the system?
The Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And there's no question that the entire issue of poverty, which is a complex issue, is coming to the forefront. As my honourable colleague identified, there was a day when no one talked about the environment, and today it is the issue. There was a day when it was taboo to talk about poverty or to talk about income assistance. That's not the case. It is and it's being discussed by all political parties, all stripes, all sectors, and I made the comment in this legislature yesterday that it's also at a point now where I believe we can engage our business sector, our business, our businesses, because it is no longer something that's swept under the rug. We recognize that it is a necessity of a collaborative approach for all of us. My honourable colleague brings forth 3 or 4 ideas that I would like to touch on. Of course, the work